Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, as always, is my good brother here in the temple, coming to us from Distorted Illumination, good brother Monarch.
I am pleased to inform you that after perusing the chapter we will be talking about in question, we do not have to worry about random titties flying up on screen.
Yeah. Now, I do want to clarify, I'm not a prude. I don't have a fainting couch in my house. I don't
Twitch
have
is.
pearls to clutch, but Twitch is another matter, and unfortunately, when you're in Rome, you gotta do as the Romans do. Believe me, I don't care for it. It's part of the reason why, as much as I'd like to review Cult, especially around this time of year, I'd have to be very careful about what I show in that. I almost got in trouble a long time ago for some nip slips in my review of Blade of the Iron Throne several years back. So I don't think anybody can blame me for being a little bit cautious.
I don't know, can you stream on Pornhub these days?
Why would I?
There's a site out there we can stream that shit on.
I guess, but
That'd be a weird place to start going for anime review, or not anime, tabletop reviews.
well, there's plenty of stuff about role-playing on a place like that. Yes, I'm not the first one to make the joke of not that kind of role-playing.
I see no reason not to get dice involved. But anyway, we're here to talk about Hellas.
Before this turns into the worst retelling of Caligula, which, if you love bad movies, that's one that should be on everyone's watch list. But now, in a lot of normal circumstances, I'd kind of skim over the equipment section in a given book. But when we're dealing with science fiction, that involves dealing with science fiction tech, and equipment is more than just weapons, armor, and adventuring equipment. It encompasses a lot of things. Now, does that mean we're going to read every individual entry for certain equipment types? No. We've never done that. But our equipment section starts with the coin of Hellas, and I'm glad that we actually have some coinage on the image that we're seeing here. A wide variety of currency is used across the many worlds. To make the economics of this genre easier, should that be game or should that be genre? For the GM, all prices of goods and services are given the same basic currency unit in drachmas, or diem. This is roughly the equivalent of the cost of a single unit of staple food, such as a loaf of bread. Drachmas are made of electrum, with a standardized 50% gold, 50% silver concentration, and have the image of Athena, patron goddess of the Athenoi system, and on the reverse, the owl of Athena. Or it's Athenia, but potato. There are a few other Athenoian coins of note. The obol is worth only a quarter of a drachma. The tetradrachma is worth 4 drachmas, as if the tetra part wasn't enough of a giveaway. The decadrachma is worth 10 drachmas, and finally the centradrachma worth 100 drachmas. The Athonian drachma is traditionally traded for the Argosian argo, another coin used throughout many regions of Hellas, on a 1-to-1 ratio, except in times of war, where the ratio changes depending on whether not Athenoian and Argos are on the same side, or not. The Argo is nearly identical in shape, size, and composition, but bears a ship on one side, the Argo, and the image of Hera, the mother, on the other. So basically, one's Athena, one's Hera. And there is wealth other than coin. Merchants commonly exchange trade goods without using currency, and in fact, on many worlds, currency is not even recognized, and folk from these regions normally rely on barter, or a system of credits as a means of trade. In these cases, trade goods, weapons, armor, tools, gems, or other such items may be required for trade. Then, buying and selling goods, and hey there, Theo, I see you in the chat. In general, a character can sell something for a quarter of its listed price if the item is in good repair and can be resold. Trade goods are the exception to the 1/4 rule. A trade good, in this sense, is a valuable good that can easily be exchanged almost as if it were cash itself. Then, materials. Most items are manufactured using standard materials, except for metals. Most items that once used metals in their manufacture now use a material called cermet. A cermet is a composite material composed of ceramic, and metallic materials. Ideally designed to have the optimal properties of both a ceramic, such as high temperature resistance and hardness, and those of a metal, such as the ability to undergo plastic deformation. This material has the benefit of being both strong and lightweight, allowing everything from a hoplite sword to the bow of a space cruiser to be made from it. Then we have power sources. The equipment in Hellas is literally powered by sun and stone, hence the name. Promethium is a reddish ore that burns with a constant golden flame, found in several places throughout Hellene space, but most notably near the Olympos star cluster, as well as near protostars and nebulae hidden in asteroid or rocky debris. Promethium is incredibly potent, and a small amount, usually about 0.5 kilograms, can provide enough power for a small family home for a week. Everything from personal energy weapons to star cruisers uses a refined promethium battery or pile. In its raw, natural state, promethium will ignite and burn incredibly hot, 7,500 degrees Fahrenheit, that's a lot, upon contact with oxygen, and will usually burn itself out within minutes. Once ignited, even the vacuum of space cannot extinguish the ore. When used in its raw form, promethium is usually held in a containment field and ignited under controlled conditions. With refinement, a promethium battery can last for quite some time, giving off an extraordinary amount of energy. And then after that is the thing on exceptional workmanship, which basically amounts to a +1 to +3 to attack or damage rolls, or both. There is also a sidebar on breaking. For the sake of speed of gameplay and unless otherwise noted, equipment needs 7 points of damage to disable, meaning it no longer functions, and 15 points of damage to destroy completely. I like that standard is set up because you can easily avoid the door problem if you're so inclined. or give people an actual incentive to be a sword breaker. But after that is buying services.
That's kind of exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Like you're hiring bounty hunters, assassins, pilots, etc.
Mm-hmm.
We got a nice list of salaries for them.
With
based
3
off
tiers.
quality, which is nice.
Three tiers. The more expensive, the higher the tier. The first number is just the basic salary. Second is going to have actually, first one is going to have a bonus of +5 to the relevant skills. Second one +10, and third one is +15. We also have a thing on the average wealth of a Hellene. So, the poor earns 200 drachma or less per month. Middle class, so artisans, craftsmen, and merchants earn 400 per month. And aristocrats and noblemen earn at least 1,000 drachma per month. And after that, we have a short list of goods and services. The standard fare you'd see in any book. And then we have a thing on clothing. I'll let you take a little bit of that.
So they come in a variety of colors. Excuse me. Some clothing is bought off the rack, while others are fashioned by the galaxy's top designers. Region also plays an important factor in what is worn. So there are several levels of quality of clothing that will determine the price, style, in hardiness. From utility, minus 25% from the cost. Off the rack clothing is the normal cost. High fashion at double. Noble wear at 3 times the cost. The one that's important here, though, is your social bonus. Clothing worn may provide a bonus to any social interaction, such as charm, con, or persuasion. Most people are disarmed by a well-dressed and groomed person, allowing for better interactions. So apparently, women do in fact love a sharp-dressed man. Those who constantly wear armor and look as though they are reading or itching for a fight receive penalties. In situations where it is appropriate, the wearer of fine clothing can receive a benefit to the roles determined by the quality of the style. Then we do got a list of bonuses for each kind, including -2 for visible weapons, -4 for visible armor, where those would apply. And Enchanting Beauty grants a bonus if you're naked.
But you actually have an incentive to pull an Archimedes if you're so inclined.
I believe that was something we kind of skimmed over from a previous section, but Enchanted Beauty's buried in there somewhere.
Yeah, it was when we were. It was basically the equivalent of talents, which we kind of dipped into beforehand. But then we have notable Hellenic clothing elements, as well as accessories you could put on particular clothing, as well as nudity is free. Though there is a side note saying, nudity does not mean that the character is completely naked all the time, just sparsely dressed, allowing for portions of her body to be displayed. A bare-chested man wearing a cloak would be considered nude for the sake of this style.
No, I do like these kind of just like side notes for clarity, but never in my mind did I think there would need to be a clarifying note for nudity.
Mm-hmm. But then we have Cybernetics. Cybernetics among the Hellenes, for anything other than medicinal purposes, is looked down upon. The Hellenes take great pride in their perfect form and would rather go without than attach a synthetic prosthetic to their bodies. Some of the stigma comes from the Machina revolt, but most comes from the Hellenes' pursuit of the idealized form. Cybernetics are never made to look like anything but what they are: cold pieces of flesh and plastic. Some may try to adorn their prosthetics with art, but it is illegal to try and cover the mechanics with synthetic flesh or hide the item. If a Hellene must get some kind of cybernetics, it is for a medical reason, and usually not for body modification or enhancement. A Hellene would much rather wear a patch over their eye than get a cybernetic replacement. Black markets do perform illegal operations or modifications on existing devices, enhancing them or turning them into weapons. If the authorities ever catch wind of such an operation, they move to shut it down and arrest those in possession of the illegal hardware. So, basically, if you do have cybernetics, unless you're a Zintar, it is looked down upon. Prosthetic legs or arms suffer a penalty of -2 to all charisma rolls, such as perform or seduction. An eye is a -4 DOD. The modifier is reversed when trying to intimidate. Full conversion kyborgs are unheard of in Hellene space. A Hellene would rather die than have his body taken from him and replaced with cold, unliving machinery. It's also a side note: only Amazorans, Gorgons, Hellenes, Nymphas, and Zintar may have prostheses installed. The Myrmidians and the Nephili have unique bodies that won't allow for the attachment of cybernetics. I mean, yeah. Can you imagine trying to do cybernetics with the Myrmidians? It wouldn't be cybernetics anymore. It would basically be nanomachines, son. Because for context, for those who didn't watch the earlier version, a Myrmidian is a sentient swarm of ants in a human shape. It is Spider's man.
But there's a whole race of them.
Yeah. a whole race of them, different hive minds, and all that. But trying to do cybernetics would be basically impossible. And as far as the Nephili, their bodies are more energy than anything else. So again, trying to do that would be pointless. But the main ones are prosthetic armor leg, which costs 2,500 drachma, or prosthetic eyes, which costs 4,000. All cybernetics have hit points of their own before they are destroyed. A limb can take 25% of the hit points of the person it is attached to before becoming inactive, and 50% before it is destroyed. Any damage over that amount is transferred to the person it's attached to. Limbs may be used to parry incoming attacks at the sacrifice of the limb. Eyes have 10 hit points and can take half that amount before becoming useless.
Yeah, next up we have Machina. So Machina are non-sentient automatons with a programmed algorithm they must follow. They can be used for maintenance, security, just about anything. Most interaction skills have no effect on them. Movement may be provided by legs, wheels, treads, etc. For the medium the Machina most likely travels through or on. They are programmed for each task it can do. Its skills represent its programming. Most Machina can only attempt actions that they have skills for. Any action that requires a skill the mechanical construct does not have cannot be done. They can adapt to circumstances covered by that attribute and make limited decisions not necessarily dealt with by their programming. For a Machina that can do this, skill attempts that default to the attribute are at -6. This accounts for the Machina being smart but not terribly creative. After the Machina revolt millennia ago, an edict was handed down that no Machina should ever play at being alive or resemble something the gods themselves created, the Hellenists. Or Hellenese. Excuse me. After the thus, manufacturers may make a machine with a humanoid shape, but it can never be created to look like a Hellene under penalty of death. So, for programs, the Machinas may be upgraded with purchased programs that allow them to perform other tasks. Each program costs a base of 200 drachmas plus 25 for each plus 1 of skill. A skill can never go above +7. Their attributes may be increased through modifying programming and appearance, or through modifying programming and appearance. So programming will affect charisma, intelligence, CR, or with mechanics, perception, many of the others. Will and Dyne may never be modified through normal means, and would be the province of some fabled expert crafter. And for armor costs 50 DM per point of PR. And then we got a little list of models here,
which I'm glad that they have there. So there's a baseline to build around. So you've got a maintenance Machina, which costs 1,000 drachma, which is exactly what you think it is. A medical Machina that costs 875. A security one that costs 2,025, and a servitor one that costs 575. We also have a short list of potential medicines. Obviously, we're not going to go into each of them, but there's a variety of setups, including ambrosia, which one dose of ambrosia costs 5,000 drachma. So good luck getting that. Then we have miscellaneous equipment. And I do like some of the images we have for several of these. Although the hand comp looks like the scanner you'd see at a at any store. Like just look at the hand comp and tell me that doesn't look like the
Just the card reader.
Yeah. I can't unsee it. Then we have the molecular. We also have the molecular grappler and gun unit, which of course you got to have a grappling hook. I do like the slip guide glider here.
That does look neat.
Mm-hmm. It definitely fits within the whole space opera Greece, because that's I could see these things in some sort of race a la Ben-Hur. But
yeah, the miscellaneous equipment is pretty much exactly what you'd think.
Yeah. And then there's the Zentar carapaces, which is a big deal for Zentars, because otherwise they can't really get around all that much.
No, I don't see like an immediate spot for like building your own from scratch.
No.
But we do have a list of them here.
Mm-hmm. We also have the fact that it takes about 30 seconds or 5 combat rounds to properly suit up and activate a carapace, and an equal amount of time to doff it. Emergency ejections are possible, but doing so wrecks the seating mechanism. And we have a few different types: a standard, a brute worker, a medical, a spacer, and a Helene. And you do have means to modify the carapace if you so choose. So you can have something that's standard looking, or you can have something that's a little on the crazier side. But then we get to planetary vehicles. So basically your vehicles that are designed to work in an atmosphere. So you've got small street motorcycles, large high-performance motorcycles, i.e. crotch rockets, and then plenty of further things. You can modify any of them to be hovercrafts, which costs 1,000 drachma. Then we have armor. Armor is modular. It mainly grants a protection rating, i.e. the amount of damage that piece of armor absorbs for a given attack. I always appreciate when armor in RPGs is more of a soak rather than a increased chance to dodge. But that's just me.
I'd go either way.
Now, with that being said, for each point that a armor grants, it takes that many rounds to put it on. So they give the example: a Gorgon carapace breastplate, which has a PR of 7, takes 7 rounds to properly fasten and equip. Now, if you're a Myrmidian, that time is cut in half. And some may say, wait, 7 rounds for a breastplate? Anyone who's ever tried to put on or put off armor will know it's not something you do very fast.
Yeah, it can be frustrating to put on a piece of armor.
Have you ever had to wear full plate?
Not the lower part, but like the full chest plate and shoulder pauldrons, yes.
Yeah, you weren't doing that in a few seconds. Even if there's a small part of me that'd love to see what would happen if you had like a racing pit crew get assigned to put armor on and off someone.
That'd help. It
would
really help.
Just that highly choreographed pit crew you see at any motorsport, you see at any lap-based motorsport anywhere in the world, but especially in places like NASCAR or F1. Uh, there are different types. Each of them having different levels of PR, as well as modifiers that increase the strength requirement. Which certainly makes sense, because to use the full plate example, that shit's heavy. Or if you want to really add up to the pain, consider how heavy the RoboCop suit was. I know I've told you that story.
Yeah.
You know, where it was heavy enough that the weight and the heat was causing Peter Weller to lose weight on a daily basis. You know, because they were like, "Hey, let's film this thing in Dallas in the middle of the summer." But see, I do find it a bit odd that that the armor modifiers are listed before the stat block for the different types of armor. That's just a pet peeve of mine. I think the placement should have been switched, but I'm guessing it was a spacing thing. But
now, one of the things I will note in this, just because it's a bit different than the others, is we got the Zintar drone shields.
Mm-hmm.
These combat drones are carried on the back of the wearer until combat. When activated, they hover around the wearer and intercept incoming attacks. The drones are linked to the user by a small headband that allows for the wearer to relay messages about attacks. The advantages of the drone is that it allows the user to have his shield hand free. More drones can be employed at one time, giving the user a bonus on all shield parries. For each shield drone in use, the user gets a bonus of +1 to his parry. A hero may have as many additional drones as he has intelligence, minimum of 1. When a shield drone takes a maximum amount of damage, it is destroyed as usual.
Mm-hmm.
An energy shield drone may parry damage 10 times before powering down and needing to be recharged. See Shroud rules below.
Yep. Then we have energy shrouds. Energy shrouds form a protective energy barrier around the user, sheltering them from attack. I guess I could liken these to the shields that you saw in Dune. Yeah. Especially, granted the ones in the more recent Dune movies, not the one in the David Lynch one that was just this CG abomination. But the advantage given to energy shrouds are they can stay active for about 2 hours before needing a recharge. They don't add to your encumbrance. They hum and shimmer, giving off a dim white light. When hit by an attack, the shroud crackles, flares, and throws off sparks. Shroud batteries can be recharged in any electrical outlet, and they do not have their PR when attacked with armor-piercing attacks. There's also there is the possibility of overloading. So if it ever takes 3 times its PR rating in attack, it has to roll its PR rating with a penalty equal to the damage that passed the shroud. If successful, it functions as normal. If it fails, the shroud shuts down and must be recharged. So then we have Aether Shrouds, which work similarly to Energy Shrouds, but are specifically meant to defend against Aether weapon attacks. Then you have Energy Shrouds stacking. They can be stacked, but they don't confer a greater PR. It allows for a greater power reserve for the Shroud. 2 Class A Energy Shrouds do not combine for a PR of 10, but will give the shield a prolonged life, doubling the amount of damage the shield can take before its power supply is depleted. Shroud stacking also combines PR for Shroud overload rolls, allowing for a greater chance of success. However, energy shrouds have to be of the same type. An energy shroud and aether shroud cannot be stacked and activated together. And there's 3 classes for each. Class A, B, and C. And then there is weapons, which has a modifier icon key right out of the gate, which I understand why. But then we have the weapons itself, starting with bladed weapons, then going into some more. I do like that we do have chain swords, so as well as the Death Zephos keeps reminding me of a Khopesh. I think it's because of the hook at the end. It gives me that vibe. Then we have hafted weapons, which are mostly going to be things like axes and clubs. And when attacking, if the attack's a critical hit, the attacker has a chance to inflict knockdown. Then we have spears and polearms. In the first round of combat, the polearm adds +4 to the user's initiative total for that round. In subsequent rounds, the speed reverts to its normal listing, English monk. The bonus is applicable when fighting anyone with a shorter reach weapon than the polearm, but does not bestow this benefit when combating someone with a ranged weapon. Let me go back to... Okay, so there isn't any special effect on bladed weapons. Then we have ranged weapons, which of course are going to be dealing with different types of ammo. And hello, Maxor. We're just going through the equipment in Hellas. It is interesting that grenades are counted as just another type of ranged weapon instead of their own category.
I'd have figured they'd have been their own category, but there's a good variety of grenades here.
I mean, let's see. We've got sonic grenades, poison thorn grenades, which for whatever reason makes me think
painful.
It makes me think of like a nail bomb.
Yeah. Pipe bomb.
Yeah. Tangle grenades.
Nerve gas.
Yeah. Inferno grenades, which is that's fucking napalm. EMP, which is exactly what you think it is. Blast grenades, which are exactly what you'd think they are. Then we have, under other weapons, things like the Kestis, a garrote, a net, a sap, and a whip. Then we have firearms. Starting with pistols. There's some pretty decent designs. Then submachine guns. Then stone throwers, which is a rifle that shoots shells consisting of small pellets. The cloud of projectiles is quite effective in close quarter and shipboard fighting. At short range, the stone thrower may hit up to 4 targets if they are standing within 0.5 meters of each other for normal damage, or 1 target for double damage at any point-blank range. Long and medium ranges do not gain any additional benefits, and they may target only 1 target doing half damage. At first I was like, wait, are they shotguns? No. They're just well, stone throwers. See, then assault rifles. I do like that lance there. Then heavy weapons. So this is where you get well, the guns that make you go cry some more. Especially since one of them is a Spartan chain gun. Then EMP weapons, which cause a bit of an EMP roll. And then finally we have a master list of weapons. some of which covering the stuff we covered before. I'm glad that there's that list. Then after that, we have spaceships, which starts with personal spaceships, and then fighters. Oh, I like some of those designs, especially the Raptor there. Although I look at some of these designs and I keep getting flashbacks to Descent. I don't know why. Well, I guarantee a campaign of Hellas is going to be easier than playing the original Descent on some of the harder difficulties, if you recall.
I don't think I ever played Descent.
It's not a bad game. It's just no one knew how to balance shooters in 6 Degrees of Freedom, so it can get very cruel. See, then we have transports, and then finally capital ships. Which, yeah, that definitely looks like what I'd expect a hauler to look like. It kind of reminds me of some of those big barges that I have to work with on a daily basis.
Yeah, then we get a bunch of just ways to modify your ships.
Mm-hmm. The main thing is hard points, which determine how much additional equipment you can have. And depending on the size of equipment, that determines how many hard points it takes up. Light equipment's 1 hard point, medium is 2, heavy is 4, super heavy is 6. And that particular rule of 4 is handled with each. With some exceptions, like say ship acceleration and deceleration modifiers. It's really based on whether or not the ship's a fighter or a transport or capital. And right at the end is missile racks for those who want to do the Eternal Circus. So I realized this was a lighter affair, but what do you think of the equipment setup?
It's not all that crazy or out there, but it gets the job done. It's what you'd want out of the system, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. I think what's the most interesting are some of the little quirks here and there.
Yeah.
That being said, when it comes to the ship part, I probably wouldn't dip into that until a few sessions in. I know it sounds very Star Warsy to have a good amount of the campaign take place on a planet and then you go into space, but considering all the different modifiers that can happen with the ships, it'd be better served to get people comfortable before you start throwing that in.
I don't think it's really intended to be a huge part of this game anyway. There wasn't like that much dedicated to things like space combat as far as we've seen.
We'll probably end up getting to that next week. Speaking of, so next week, if I've got this right, and let me double check to make sure I'm not talking out of my ass. Yeah, next week we're finally getting into the core rules, though we've kind of hinted at a lot of them up until this point.
It is a little weird it's taken this long to get to core rules, though.
Yeah, but we were working with how they're presented in this, so...
Yeah.
And it's not like what I do where I try and present the core rules the first chance I get. But this is where we will get into the Omni system and how it ends up working. And I know it's tempting to just write it off as another D20 affair, but really it has less in common with the D20 systems you're familiar with and more in common with Talislanta, which I have on Word of God as one of the big inspirations. And Well, Talislanta is an interesting beast, both when it comes to its mechanics and as a setting. And I'm glad to see how 6th edition turned out with that, but we're not covering that tonight. So until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
我所